And we are live. Welcome to Olivia's Stories, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, guys. I am faced with a tough decision right now, and I don't know whether to follow my heart or follow my mind. My heart is saying something else, and it is something I have longed for, and my mind is telling me I am making a very big mistake. I left my husband for my high school crush. I didn't think it was a bad thing to do because I had always loved him, and I wanted to find happiness after a long time. My name is Beth, and I am a 28-year-old lady. I'm a real estate developer. I love what I do. It has been my passion for many years. The name of my husband is William, and he is 32 years old. Willem is an engineer, and we have been married for 4 years now. The relationship between me and William is not a normal one. Yes, we got married, but we didn't know each other, or let me say we weren't each other's first choice at that point. William and I got married because I had thought it was the right thing to do, because William was going to give me stability, and I need that in my life. But looking back now, it wasn't a good decision. I wasn't really in love with William. I was only in love with the idea that came with him. Indeed, we dated for a couple of months before marriage, but I wasn't really paying attention. But after marriage, I saw that William was not really who or what I had thought. He was very dominating, like he had to know everything about me, which I didn't sign up for. I thought he was going to be calm and collected, but he wasn't. He was always in my business, telling me what to do. It was getting too much for me, and I had to do something about it. I always thought maybe that was his own way of showing me love, but I did not understand. William and I, irrespective of our differences, we still found a way for us to be together in front of the world. We could go out for dinner and parties. I tried on different bases to connect with him, but it wasn't working because I had my heart somewhere else. I can say that I never really got over my high school crush because he meant everything to me. I had his pictures cut out in my room when I was still in school. People could say I was a stalker, but I didn't mind because I was in love. William and I never really agreed on many things, but the one thing we agreed on was our love for my father. My father was an exceptional man who saw William like a son he never had. They had a type of bond. I am so happy for them. Whenever William comes around, my father's face lights up like he had won a jackpot, and it hasn't been like that since I could remember. They got to catch up after a long time, and I appreciate William always trying to spend time with him. My mother was also a fan of William, which, by the way, she points out every time. We had dinner with my parents, and we talked about a lot of things. My parents kept talking about how I was as a baby to William, and I never really got the point. William was a different kind of person whenever he was with my family. He was always appearing relaxed, but in the outside world, he was this type of no-nonsense man. Dinner went well at my parents' place, and we left. The following morning, I woke up with a reminder ringing on my phone. I looked at it and saw it was the day of our anniversary. We have been married for 3 years now officially. I didn't know whether I should be happy or disappointed to find out that William left me a note saying I should dress appropriately for dinner that day. I decided to not let it spoil my mood, and I got ready for work. Throughout the day, I decided not to think about it, but deep in my heart, I wanted to receive at least a call from him, but I didn't get any. I got home to prepare for the dinner, and William came to pick me up a few moments later, so it turned out that the dinner wasn't even planned by him. It was his assistant. I knew she had her eyes on William right from the very beginning, because she could try to condemn me with every given opportunity. She would look at me in a certain way, which gave out jealousy. But I never gave her the satisfaction of getting to me. But today, I felt very foolish because my husband was seeking the help of his assistant for our anniversary dinner. The food was not to my liking because everything was badly put together, and I was allergic to almost everything on the plate. But I tried to explain to William, but he thought I was not being grateful. Our anniversary dinner ended up with us arguing about how he gave his assistant our anniversary to plan, instead of him to do it himself, or ask me for my help, and he knew we weren't on good terms. He saw it as me being jealous, and I left there because I didn't want to say something I could regret. I decided to pay Mel a visit because I knew she was capitalizing on the kind of relationship I had with William to drive us further apart. I confronted her, to which she denied innocently. I knew she was just trying to mess with me and get under my skin, but I didn't give her the satisfaction. I warned her to back off, or it was not going to end well for her. I went home and I saw William nursing a drink. I made him understand that it was not okay for him to let his assistant in our home. It wasn't okay for someone he had a romantic relationship with to plan our dinner. And he kept saying he wasn't involved with her, but I never believed him, because that was not the impression I was getting from his assistant. Because my mind kept telling me there was more. For the next couple of days, I didn't find William at home. I assumed that he had ghosted me the way he usually does after an argument. At that point, I didn't care, because I knew what he did was unacceptable. I called my best friend Brenda because I needed to speak to someone, and she was my go-to friend. Brenda and I have been best friends since we could walk, and we didn't hide anything from each other. I told her what happened between me and William, and she told me I should have handled it better. But I was angry as to why he could give an important thing, as our anniversary, to his assistant, who clearly did not like me. At the end of the day, I felt relieved. I was able to talk to her, and that's why I loved her. She took me out to dinner, and we got to catch up after a long time. Brenda, between the two of us, got the very best in life. She married the love of her life. She had 3 beautiful children, and I sometimes envy her. It was a few weeks later, and things were back together between me and my husband, William. We were doing a lot of things in order for us to fix our relationship. We agreed to go to therapy because we were not heading to a good place. But after a lot of therapy, we discovered that we were both not putting in the work in our relationship, and we didn't respect each other. After the whole therapy, we got to know more about each other's feelings, and we started working on it. After a few months, we were making progress, and I was in my office one morning when I received a call from an unknown number. I was skeptical about receiving it because I don't like speaking with strangers, but when I answered the call, I heard a voice I haven't heard in almost 20 years. It was the voice of my high school crush, Jimmy. I was in a total shock, and I didn't know what to say. I was so happy that we started catching up right away. It felt like old times, and Jimmy had told me he got my number from a mutual friend and that he was in the city and he had liked to see me. I was happy. I was going to see him after a long time, and we set a date for us to see each other. My mood for the whole day changed after that phone call. I went home that day with every intention of telling my husband about the call I received. I told William about it, and he quickly shut it down, and I was taken aback. I actually told him how close I was to Jimmy, and he told me I was married, and I shouldn't be going to see my high school crush. I didn't listen to him because I thought we were working on our relationship, and he should have had a little faith in me that I wasn't going to do anything I was not supposed to. But either way, I made plans to see my high school crush anyway. I met up with Jimmy, and he had changed a lot. We talked about a lot of things, and at that moment, everything was perfect. I told Jimmy I was married, and he kept flirting with me like he always did back then in school. I suggested that since he was in town, we should see each other more often. I always loved his company back then, and even now. The following day, I told Brenda about Jimmy, and she was excited too, and I called Jimmy so we could meet up. Jimmy and Brenda had this kind of friendship. They were practically siblings back then, and we met up for drinks, and they talked and hugged. It was a very sweet moment. On my way home with Brenda, she had told me I should be careful with Jimmy because she saw the way he was flirting with me. I never really cared, because I also had a crush on Jimmy, but seeing as I was married then, she saw it as a problem. I saw her point, and I decided to limit my relationship with him. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was going to try. William still didn't know I was seeing my high school crush behind his back, and it went on for some time. Jimmy could ask me out to get drinks and catch up. I could accept every time because it was an outlet for me. He was someone that I knew for a long time. 2 months later, Jimmy asked me out officially on a date, and I turned him down. I was married, and I was trying to commit to my marriage, but in my mind I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone, because they could show me the reality of my actions all along, and I didn't want to face it. In my heart, I felt I hurt his feelings because for the next few weeks I never heard from Jimmy. It was as if he was angry I turned down his offer. I tried calling him, but to no avail. Months later, I received a call from him saying he had business to take care of, and he had been occupied ever since I didn't really believe him, but I decided to go with it. I was just happy I got my friend back, and we were going to be on speaking terms again. We talked about meeting each other at the end of the week. William and I at that point were in a good place thanks to our therapy, but I never really got over having Mel as his assistant. I could see her working late hours with my husband, and they were getting close. He kept telling me he had nothing to do with her except work. I didn't believe it because I had seen them in a bad position one time, but I decided to let it go. But I never spoke to him about it. If he could be that way with his assistant, I had every right to consider Jimmy's offer. If me accepting his offer of a date was going to keep him in my life, I will gladly consider it. I got to the restaurant when I saw Jimmy waving at me. I went to meet up with him and we hugged. He introduced me to a lady who he called his girlfriend. I was shocked because I thought he had no girlfriend, and that was the reason he was asking me out, but it turned out that they were not in a good place, and he thought he could move on with me. His girlfriend Ella was aware that me and Jimmy go way back, but I didn't understand why she was always looking at me in a certain way. She could always talk over me whenever I was trying to talk to Jimmy. I got to know that Ella did not like me, and I was not a fan of her either. She was all over Jimmy, and it felt like she was trying to mark her territory, and she could kiss Jimmy in front of me and make out. It was worse because Jimmy was actually encouraging her to do it. I was jealous because I had come there with the intention of telling Jimmy that we should try going out together. But since he introduced his girlfriend, I didn't know how to go about it. It went on for a while, and I didn't like it. Jimmy kept on inviting his girlfriend to our usual outings. I didn't see the need as to why he did that. There were days when Jimmy could flirt with me, and his girlfriend got the wind that we had something at some point since then. She had seen me as her enemy. I didn't really give her attention, but she kept throwing shades here and there. I was tired of her drama and thought it was time to get rid of her. I planned to get Jimmy alone in order for me to talk to him about us trying a relationship. I was feeling so left out because I had my chance, and I blew it. I was very jealous of the way Jimmy was with Ella, because I never got that with my husband William when we were dating, and even now we hardly see each other. And when we do, we don't see eye to eye. I got to Jimmy's house, and I saw that he was alone. We talked for some minutes, and I told him how I felt, and he asked me what changed my mind, and I had to explain to him what was really going on with my husband. I needed closure, and William was not giving it to me. Jimmy agreed for us to try it out, since we have always loved each other. I had to ask about Ella too, which he said she doesn't mean anything to that he had always wanted me. Unknown to us that Ella was listening to our conversation and she was going to use it against me. I got home and I felt at ease. I was gradually going to be happy again with the man I have loved forever. My crush on Jimmy goes beyond anyone can comprehend. I was genuinely happy, and I haven't been for a long time with William. It varies from one problem to another. He never listens to me, and he does whatever he wants. With Jimmy, I am heard, respected, and appreciated. I was getting ready for bed when William walked in. I felt like I hadn't seen him in days, so I decided to speak to him about where he had been for days. He ignored me like usual. After a few minutes, he told me that he kept seeing me with a guy he didn't know, and I quickly said that he was a client and we were working on something together. I knew he didn't believe me because I saw doubt in his face. He had his suspicions, but I didn't understand why, because he was literally doing the same thing with his assistant. William didn't know Jimmy, and I am happy because it's going to stay that way. I went on numerous dates with Jimmy. We kissed a few times and it was very beautiful. There were days we were joined by his girlfriend, and in those days we just talked casually with no touching because she was always all over him. We could discuss random things and we could talk about how we were in high school, and we could laugh. I could see that Ella was feeling left out because she could grow quiet anytime we start discussing. I didn't honestly care because I didn't want her there, but I had no choice. We were all having lunch one day in my favorite restaurant when I saw William walk in with his assistant. I tried to hide, but I failed miserably because he saw me and walked over to our table. We exchanged greetings and I told him I was having lunch with my friends. I didn't say who Jimmy was, and I was happy he didn't press further. I totally ignored Mel because I didn't care about her. William told me they were there to see a client, and they left. I felt like that was really close, and at that point, I didn't know that Mel was going to put some ideas in William's head. I got home, and he started asking me about the guy I was with. He kept saying he had been seeing me with him for weeks now, and he didn't want to say anything. I had to explain to him we had nothing going on except friendship and work. But he didn't believe me, and he kept shouting about how I wasn't loyal and whatnot. but I had to explain to him that he was literally accusing me of the same thing he was doing with his assistant. Like usual, he left mid-conversation, and I was so angry because he had always done that every time. The next day, I knew it was time to put an end to everything because I had suffered enough. I met up with Jimmy and told him it was time for him to tell me where we stood concerning our relationship. I told him we had to stop our hide and seek and start the real thing, to which he asked if I was ready to leave my husband, and I said yes, because I was very tired already. He told me he had loved me from the beginning when we were in high school, and he had waited to be reunited with me, but when I got married a couple of years back, he decided to let me be, but he said he took a chance, and that's why he came looking for me. I was happy he said that because for years I had longed for what we had, and now I want it again. I brought up the issue of his girlfriend, and he told me he had no girlfriend, and that it was his own way of making me jealous in order for me to realize my true feelings. I told him it worked because it contributed to opening my eyes to see what I had been missing. Jimmy took me to his house after our discussion, and it felt right for us to take our relationship to the next level. We kissed and we had a beautiful night together. The next day I got up early to make breakfast for us. It was official that I am back with the man I had loved since high school. We were cuddling when Ella walked in on us. I knew she was hurt because of the way Jimmy broke it to her, but honestly I didn't care because she had tortured me for so long. She knew I liked Jimmy, but she still robbed it in my face. Ella left Jimmy's apartment in tears, and Jimmy told me I shouldn't worry about it. It should be over in a few days. I left Jimmy's apartment, promising to come back later. I got home, and I saw William and Mel working. William asked me where I had been, and I told him nowhere, but he kept on saying he feels I am cheating on him, and I was offended because he was asking me that in front of his assistant. I ignored him and went to our room, because this was what Ella wanted for us to have issues, and I was not going to give her that satisfaction. A few weeks later, Jimmy and I got stronger. We went on romantic dates and shared lovely moments together. It was a dream that came through. I got home after a wonderful evening, and I saw that William was at home. We had not been speaking for weeks now after what had happened, but I never really cared, and he didn't either. But I was still mad that he didn't give me care. I thought he was going to fight for our marriage. I got inside to see him looking angry, and he told me he had found out about what I had been doing for months now. I didn't believe him because I thought he was bluffing, but he said a lady called Ella had walked into his office saying I was cheating on my husband with my high school crush. The same person he had asked me not to see. I told him I was in love with my Jimmy and that I was done with the relationship at that point. I told him he could file the divorce papers. I am also tired of him going out with his assistant and also not committing to me. William made sure to put me down, saying how horrible I was and that I am going to regret what I did. I walked out of the house, and I never looked back because I was free and I was going to reunite with someone I loved. Update. Hello, guys. So right now, I am happy with my life. I have been able to settle down nicely with my boyfriend Jimmy, and everything has been going on perfectly. Sometimes I think back to everything that has happened, and I feel like I should have handled some things differently. I know the way I acted was way out of line, but I was fighting for my happiness, and I wasn't happy with the marriage I was in. After that day, William filed for divorce, and it was handed to me by his assistant. Funny, right? It turned out I was right all along. She had eyes on him, and she finally got him. I was happy because she could have him. I wasn't interested in being together with someone who couldn't respect me. At least they were together, and they complemented each other. Life is full of surprises, and at the end of the day, you can never really tell what happens at the end of the day. I guess I've seen my own fair share of life's surprises, and I've learned as much as I can. I hope the future is better. I can only hope at the end of the day.